The DNA is telling us. Doing the Y chromosome work, I found that there wasn't a link between Richard III and the male line relative.
The flames that erased centuries of human knowledge left no witnesses, only echoes. Somewhere in antiquity, the greatest library ever built disappeared, and with it, untold scrolls of science, philosophy, and forgotten worlds. No one can say when the final ember died, but the loss still haunts our imagination. Was it a single night of fire and panic, or a slow erosion of neglect and greed? Did ancient discoveries, machines, medicines, even maps of distant lands vanish forever inside its walls? The Library of Alexandria is both legend and warning. For 2,000 years, scholars have asked, who destroyed it and why? The answers twist through time, wrapped in rumor, politics, and power. To follow the trail is to confront the fragility of knowledge itself, and the chilling truth that civilization can forget its own genius overnight. In 2021, archaeologists digging beneath a bustling district of modern Alexandria made an unexpected find, a cluster of underground chambers lined with stone benches and niches. At first glance, they seemed like ordinary storerooms or burial crypts, but scattered in the dust were tiny scraps of papyrus, charred and blackened, their ink still faintly visible. Carbon dating placed them between the 3rd century BCE and the 1st century CE, the exact span when the Great Library supposedly thrived. News of the fragments spread like wildfire. Could these ruins belong to the fabled library? Were these the first physical traces of an institution, long thought lost to the sea or devoured by fire? Historians and scientists descended on the site. Under microscopes, the papyrus revealed texts in Greek and Demotic Egyptian, mathematical notations, astronomical diagrams, even passages quoting Aristotle previously unknown. The implications were staggering, a hint that the library's spirit, if not its full grandeur, might have survived in hidden vaults. Yet the discovery raised more questions than it answered. Why were these chambers sealed so carefully? Who buried them and when? And why had no ancient writer mentioned such a cache? Like a ghostly whisper, the find reignited a mystery that had never truly gone silent. For centuries, scholars have debated how the greatest storehouse of knowledge in the ancient world could simply vanish. Now the earth itself was hinting that the story might be even more complex and far more human than legend suggests. The Library of Alexandria began as a dream of empire. In the early 3rd century BCE, Alexander the Great's general Ptolemy IV founded a new Egyptian dynasty. His son, Ptolemy II Philadelphus, envisioned a city that would be the beating heart of learning for the entire Mediterranean. Ships docking in its bustling harbor were required to surrender any books on board for copying. Originals were kept and duplicates returned. The goal was nothing less than to collect every written work on Earth. Within decades, the library became a magnet for the greatest minds of the ancient world. Euclid formalized geometry. Eratosthenes calculated the circumference of the planet, and physicians dissected human bodies to map our anatomy. It wasn't just a building, but a nerve center of scholarship, reportedly housing hundreds of thousands of scrolls. Yet Alexandria sat at the crossroads of empires. It was coveted by Rome, shaken by civil wars, and entangled in the rivalries of pharaohs and Caesars. Each shift in power brought danger. A single spark, whether from negligence, malice, or simple chance, could reduce papyrus to ash in minutes. Ancient writers hinted at disasters. Julius Caesar's siege in 48 BCE, a civil war in the 3rd century CE, decrees by Christian zealots in the 4th, and later invasions by Arab forces. But none offer a clear singular account. Instead, the library fades in the record like a candle guttering in the wind. By late antiquity, references to the great collection dwindled to whispers. Whether consumed in a single catastrophic blaze or slowly dismantled over centuries, the library's disappearance became one of history's deepest wounds, a reminder that even the brightest achievements can be erased by politics, neglect, or the cruelty of time. Modern scholarship has turned the hunt for the library into a detective story spanning continents. Archaeologists comb Alexandria's old quarter with ground-penetrating radar, Marine researchers dive into the harbor, where earthquake and tsunami have submerged parts of the ancient city. Historians sift through dusty manuscripts in monasteries and private collections, searching for any hint of what survived. Clues emerge in surprising places. A medieval Arabic text describes a vast hall of wisdom still standing long after Rome's decline. Fragments of Greek plays once thought lost surface in Egyptian desert towns, preserved in dry sands far from Alexandria. Each find suggests that the library's holdings were not neatly annihilated but scattered like seeds on the wind. Yet obstacles are formidable. Much of ancient Alexandria lies beneath modern streets and apartment blocks. Political instability in the region complicates large-scale digs, and the Mediterranean's restless tides guard submerged ruins with layers of silt. Scientists deploy cutting-edge tools, LIDAR, isotope analysis, even DNA sequencing of ancient papyrus fibers to trace origins of recovered fragments. One team compares ink chemistry to map trade routes of scribes who might have copied texts for the library. Meanwhile, historians debate the written record. Did Caesar's fire truly consume the shelves? Or did later Roman administrators quietly repurpose the scrolls, selling them to private collectors? Perhaps the Christian patriarch Theophilus, in his zeal to cleanse pagan relics, ordered the final destruction around 391 CE. Each theory has evidence and glaring gaps. Through it all, one truth endures. The library story is not just about a building, but about the fragility of memory. Every lost scroll represents voices silenced, poets, mathematicians, physicians whose discoveries might have leapt centuries ahead of their time. Could steam power, vaccines, or advanced astronomy have emerged a millennium earlier if those texts had survived? As excavations continue, the question is no longer merely who burned the library, but how much of it might still lie hidden waiting to be found. The search is as much about our future as our past, a race against erosion, urban expansion, and the quiet decay of forgotten knowledge. The 2021 papyrus fragments offered a rare chance to apply 21st century science to an ancient enigma. Specialists in ancient DNA, more accustomed to bones than books, joined papyrologists to analyze plant fibers in the scrolls. They used micro-CT scanning to read layers too fragile to unroll physically, revealing Greek treatises on optics and a lost commentary on Archimedes. Carbon dating pinned the materials to within a few decades of the library's peak. Ink analysis showed trade connections stretching from India to the Aegean, evidence of a cosmopolitan network feeding Alexandria's thirst for knowledge. Even more intriguing were isotopic signatures in the papyrus that matched reeds grown near the ancient Nile Delta, strengthening the case that these were local copies rather than imports. If confirmed, it suggests that Alexandria's scribes were actively reproducing texts, proof of a thriving intellectual industry. But science also revealed the scars of disaster. Microscopic residues of ash and salt indicated exposure to both fire and seawater. This dual signature aligns with historical accounts of multiple calamities: Caesar's siege fires and later tsunamis that rocked the coastline. Researchers sequenced DNA from the plant material to map the genetic diversity of papyrus crops. Their findings showed unusual uniformity, hinting at centralized cultivation possibly managed by the Ptolemaic state. Such organization supports the image of a government-backed quest to gather all knowledge, a project as ambitious as any empire. Still, these tests cannot answer the most tantalizing question: how much was lost? Scholars estimate anywhere from 40,000 to 400,000 scrolls once filled the halls. If even a fraction survive in buried caches, their discovery could rewrite science and philosophy as profoundly as the unearthing of the Dead Sea Scrolls or the Rosetta Stone. The fragments thus serve both as evidence and challenge. Proof the library was real and immense, and a reminder that the vast majority of its treasures remain hidden or gone forever. Yet the science led to an unsettling realization. The library may not have perished in a single dramatic blaze at all. Instead, it seems to have died by 1,000 quiet cuts. Archival research uncovered shipping records showing rare manuscripts leaving Alexandria centuries after its supposed destruction. Letters from late Roman scholars speak of copying Alexandrian texts well into the 5th century. Rather than a single villain, there may have been countless small betrayals, greedy officials selling scrolls, conquerors repurposing papyrus for their own archives, caretakers who let leeks and insects devour shelves. This slow unraveling changes the narrative entirely. The library's death was not the work of one conqueror's torch, but of human frailty, neglect, economics, and the simple fact that parchment rots while memories fade. Even the newly discovered fragments bear marks of deliberate sealing, as if someone tried to save a sliver of the collection from the chaos above. Perhaps a devoted scribe hid them, hoping future generations would recover at least a whisper of the lost wisdom. The revelation is haunting. It suggests that the greatest catastrophe in intellectual history wasn't a sudden inferno, but a long forgetting. A warning that knowledge can vanish not only in flames, but in apathy. The implications are immense. Had the library endured, human progress might have leapt centuries ahead. Ancient reports speak of mechanical devices, advanced medical theories, and geographical charts rivaling those of the Renaissance. Imagine antibiotics discovered in antiquity, or spacefaring concepts centuries before Copernicus. The mystery also shapes how we guard information today. Digital archives promise permanence, yet hard drives corrode, formats become obsolete, and political upheaval can erase data overnight. The library's fate is a cautionary tale for our own fragile cloud of knowledge. For Egypt, the discovery reclaims a chapter of heritage too often overshadowed by pyramids and pharaohs. For the world, it ignites a renewed drive to protect cultural memory, from war zones to climate-threatened sites. Scholars argue that the library's loss, paradoxically, fueled innovation. Forced to rebuild, civilizations developed new methods of preservation, codices instead of scrolls, decentralized libraries across Europe and the Middle East. From loss came resilience, but the emotional ache remains. To stand in Alexandria today, waves lapping at the harbor, is to feel the weight of what might have been. Every scrap of papyrus recovered is both triumph and lament, a reminder that civilization's greatest enemy may be forgetfulness itself. Beneath the noise of a modern city, the Library of Alexandria still whispers. Perhaps more chambers wait in the silted harbor, their scrolls sealed in clay jars. Perhaps they are gone forever, dust carried by Mediterranean winds. The mystery endures because it speaks to something larger than a single building. It warns that knowledge is not immortal. It survives only if we defend it, relentlessly, collectively, across generations. The newly unearthed fragments prove that the library was not merely legend. They are a message from the past. What you cherish, you must protect. For if the world's greatest library can vanish, so can the digital memory of our own age. As archaeologists dig and historians debate, the question lingers like smoke. What other wonders, waiting just beyond our reach, have already slipped through time's fingers? And will we too be remembered as the people who let our own wisdom burn? In climate-controlled vaults from Cairo to California, today's archivists fight a quiet war against oblivion. They digitize ancient manuscripts with multispectral scanners, capturing wavelengths invisible to the human eye. Entire libraries are cloned into data centers buried deep in mountains, safe from floods, fires, even nuclear blasts. Projects like the Internet Archive and the Arctic World Archive on Svalbard Island aim to preserve everything from Shakespeare's plays to entire scientific databases for 1,000 years. Yet experts caution that technology alone is no guarantee. Magnetic tapes demagnetize. Cloud servers depend on corporations that may vanish. Formats become unreadable as software evolves. These modern efforts are, in many ways, the descendants of the Ptolemies' ambition. But the lesson of Alexandria looms. Knowledge survives only if future generations choose to value it. Without that will, no amount of hardware can save us from a slow fade into silence. The tragedy of Alexandria is not unique. Centuries later, the House of Wisdom in Baghdad, another beacon of scholarship, was sacked during the Mongol invasion of 1258. its priceless manuscripts dumped into the Tigris until the river ran black with ink. In Mesoamerica, Spanish conquistadors burned codices of the Maya, erasing entire histories of astronomy and mathematics. Even in the modern era, wars in the Balkans and the Middle East have reduced national libraries to ash. Each catastrophe carries the same refrain: when power shifts, memory becomes collateral damage. Rulers rewrite history. Conquerors fear the ideas they do not understand. The Library of Alexandria may be the most famous example, but it is part of a larger pattern, a reminder that civilization's archive is perpetually under threat. Archaeologists in Alexandria remain undeterred. Underneath apartment blocks and busy markets, they map hidden chambers with ground-penetrating radar. Marine teams dive year-round in the harbor, tracing columns and sphinx fragments where earthquakes dragged the ancient shoreline underwater. Every season brings whispers of new finds. A half-eroded statue here, a sealed amphora there. Each clue keeps hope alive that more scrolls, or at least their copies, still lie entombed beneath layers of silt and stone. For these explorers, the library is more than a historical puzzle. It is a symbol of humanity's endless drive to know itself. Whether or not the final chamber is ever found, the quest affirms a deeper truth. The pursuit of knowledge is itself the legacy of Alexandria. The ghosts of Alexandria hover over today's internet. Billions of documents, videos, and datasets now exist only as strings of code on private servers. If a company folds or a government censors, entire knowledge vaults can disappear in an instant. Historians warn that we are repeating the very vulnerabilities the ancients faced, only faster. Hard drives corrode, formats become obsolete, and a single cyber attack could cripple archives that feel untouchable. Already, websites from the early 2000s have faded into oblivion, their data lost to broken links and outdated file types. Initiatives like locks, lots of copies keep stuff safe, and the decentralized interplanetary file system aim to counter this fragility. But the lesson is unmistakable. Preservation is a continuous act, not a one-time fix. The Library of Alexandria is not just a memory. It's a mirror reflecting our own precarious digital empire. Though the shelves of Alexandria are gone, echoes of its wisdom persist in unexpected corners. Greek medical treatises preserved by Islamic scholars later fueled the Renaissance. Fragments of lost tragedies by Sophocles surface in Egyptian rubbish mounds. Even the concept of a universal library inspired medieval monasteries and, centuries later, the great research universities of Europe and America. Every recovered line feels like a message across time. A chart of distant stars, a formula for herbal remedies, a forgotten poem capturing the scent of a vanished garden. These fragments remind us that knowledge is never wholly destroyed. It migrates, transforms, and waits for rediscovery. The library's spirit survives wherever curiosity triumphs over chaos. Each recovered text is a quiet defiance of fire and forgetting. What might the next chapter hold? Perhaps deep-sea robotics will uncover sealed amphorae in Alexandria's harbor. Perhaps quantum imaging will read carbonized scrolls still hidden in ancient villas, as it did in Herculaneum. Or perhaps the ultimate revelation will come not from the past, but from our own resolve to safeguard what we create today. The Library of Alexandria teaches that civilization's greatest wealth is not gold or stone, but the stories, discoveries, and questions we leave behind. Whether we treat that inheritance as sacred or expendable will decide how future generations remember us, or whether they can remember us at all. Beneath Alexandria's glittering harbor, divers glide through a submerged world of toppled columns and sphinx heads. Earthquakes and tsunamis long ago dragged parts of the ancient city beneath the Mediterranean, creating an underwater maze where light filters through in green-gold beams. Marine archaeologists map the ruins with sonar and autonomous submersibles, revealing streets once bustling with scholars and merchants. Each descent is a battle against silt and shifting currents. Visibility can drop to inches in an instant, and every object, an amphora, a carved lintel, must be documented with painstaking care. But the sea has also preserved what land destroyed. Statues still bear their inscriptions. Fragments of mosaic floors remain vivid after 2 millennia. These underwater excavations feed the dream that sealed jars of scrolls might yet rest in these drowned precincts. If found, even a single intact manuscript could redefine our understanding of ancient science and art. Why does the Library of Alexandria captivate us so deeply? Partly it is the scale of the tragedy, but more than that, it is the human yearning for what might have been. We imagine cures for diseases discovered centuries earlier, star charts predicting planets before telescopes, philosophies that could have reshaped politics and ethics. Psychologists call this counterfactual. Curiosity, the haunting pull of what if. The library's story embodies our collective fear that we have already missed our greatest opportunity. It forces us to confront mortality on a civilizational scale. If knowledge can die, so can progress, culture, and identity. This emotional resonance explains why every rumor of a new fragment electrifies the world. The loss is personal. It speaks to the fragility of our own memories, our own stories, and our responsibility to guard them. Perhaps the Library of Alexandria was never just a building. Perhaps it is an idea, one that cannot be burned or drowned. From the great medieval universities to modern digital archives and even the concept of open-source knowledge, the dream persists, a place where all wisdom can be shared freely. Every time we teach, record, or upload, we add a brick to that eternal library. It is scattered across servers, notebooks, songs, and oral traditions. Its walls are invisible, but its purpose is unmistakable, to keep the flame of human curiosity alive. The Ptolemies sought to gather every scroll on Earth. Today, billions of people contribute to a living archive far larger than anything they could have imagined. If we protect it, the spirit of Alexandria endures, not as ruins beneath the sea, but as a global commitment to remember, learn, and dream. Not all survivors of the library's age are papyrus or stone. Ancient ships, buried in harbor mud, carry hints of the intellectual traffic that once flowed through Alexandria. Maritime archaeologists have recovered timbers etched with faint cargo marks, symbols that match those found on papyrus fragments from the recent dig. These vessels were the lifelines of knowledge, ferrying scrolls from Athens, Babylon, and India, each artifact, an amphora sealed with resin. A sailor's scratched note confirms that ideas traveled alongside spices and silks. They are mute witnesses to a golden network of trade and scholarship, evidence that the library's reach extended across 3 continents. Their discovery reminds us that the story of Alexandria is as much about global exchange as local loss. Modern science has begun searching for the library's echoes not just in ruins, but in life itself. Botanists sequence ancient plant DNA from the papyrus fragments, while medical historians study Greco-Egyptian remedies preserved in folk practices. Some treatments, once dismissed as superstition, show surprising pharmacological value, hinting that lost medical texts may still influence cures today. It is a paradox. The words are gone, yet their knowledge may persist in traditions passed down through generations, encoded in the very plants and healing rituals of the Mediterranean. This living legacy suggests that even when texts vanish, ideas can migrate into culture, waiting centuries to be recognized by science. Ultimately, the Library of Alexandria forces us to face a sobering truth. Knowledge is never safe. It demands constant guardianship. Wars, politics, neglect, and even natural decay will always threaten it. Today, climate change endangers coastal archives, while political unrest can erase digital records with a keystroke. The library's fate warns that memory is action, a daily choice to preserve, duplicate, and share. Every time we back up data, translate a manuscript, or teach a child, we defy the oblivion that claimed Alexandria. Perhaps that is the final legacy. Not merely the dream of total knowledge, but the responsibility to protect what we already hold. The greatest lesson of the world's greatest library is that the fight for memory never ends. In laboratories and archives worldwide, a quiet alliance of scholars, engineers, and volunteers works to rebuild what Alexandria once promised. Digital humanities teams painstakingly scan rare manuscripts at microscopic resolution, stitching together texts scattered across continents. Artificial intelligence now reconstructs missing phrases from fragmented papyri, guessing a poet's next line with astonishing accuracy. Projects such as the Universal Digital Library and the Open Knowledge Commons aspire to gather every book, dataset, and piece of music ever created. Their ambition mirrors the Ptolemies, but with tools unimaginable in antiquity: quantum storage, blockchain verification, and machine learning translation across thousands of languages. This modern revival is not mere homage. It is an act of defiance against the oblivion that consumed Alexandria, proof that the human drive to collect and share wisdom is stronger than the forces that once tried to erase it. The libraries. Legend has left fingerprints on art and literature for centuries. Renaissance painters imagined scholars fleeing flames with armfuls of scrolls. Poets from Shelley to Borges turned its loss into metaphor, mourning not just a building but the fragility of human ambition. Even modern films and novels revisit the tragedy, using it as a symbol for lost innocence and the eternal hunger for knowledge. Every retelling reshapes the myth, keeping it alive in collective memory. Through these cultural echoes, the library continues to inspire creators to ask the same question: what stories might change the world if only they survived? In this way, Alexandria's absence has become a presence of its own, a muse that drives artists and thinkers to preserve what they love before it disappears. Perhaps the final chapter of the Library of Alexandria is not written in ruins or fragments, but in our ongoing quest to learn. Each discovery, from a newly decoded papyrus to an ancient ship's manifest, adds a spark to the fire that the Ptolemies lit more than 2 millennia ago. Future missions may unearth sealed chambers beneath modern Alexandria or uncover scrolls preserved in desert caves. But even if no grand cache is ever found, the pursuit itself honors the library's spirit. It affirms that curiosity is immortal, that the desire to know and to remember transcends every empire and every catastrophe. In that sense, the library never truly died. It lives wherever a mind seeks understanding, wherever a question demands an answer, and wherever humanity chooses to remember.